winning is not losing or failure. The opposite is giving up, doing nothing, apathy. That's the opposite of winning.
Yes.
Because when you talk to people who are classified as winners, they had a whole lot of figuring it out along the way that would be classified as losing or failure. To them, it was just like, what didn't work? Now I'm going to figure out what does, and then as I figure that out, then I start making progress towards my goal, and I get to that 12th inch, but they never stop there. They're never content with that.
Welcome to Above the Legal Limit. I'm your host, Justin Chopin, business owner, lawyer, dad, world's best husband, traveler, and adventure seeker. On this podcast, we mix business with pleasure. We'll dive into growth strategies, entrepreneurial adventures, the business of law, and prove that business isn't boring. So let's get ready because we are going above the legal limit. Welcome to the show. I have a special guest today, John Hanson. Thank you for joining us, sir.
My pleasure. I'm looking forward to having our conversation today, Justin, and always enjoy conversations on podcasts, so grateful to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. I want to hear all about you and all about what you do, but first, I want to know, what's the best place you've ever had a vacation?
Sanibel Island, Florida. Best place ever.
All right. Now,
Yeah.
where in Florida is that? I
So
know,
it's on the
I've
Gulf
heard
side.
of it. It's on the Gulf side, okay.
It actually got hit. Our timing was good. It was a couple of years ago before they got hit by that storm that literally washed out the bridge between the mainland and Sanibel Island, and they rebuilt it quick. But we experienced it. So many cool beaches, lots of shells. It's like its own micro economy once you go across the bridgeway into Sanibel Island. A lot of people on bicycles going from here to there. So that a little bit warmer on that side, but the shells on the Gulf side is what's the big attraction for people, and our family loved it. As a matter of fact, I just sat there in the sand and just pulled out one shell after another.
Right.
So it was pretty cool.
All right. So if you are, right, it's like the proverbial question, like, are you beach or are you mountain? Or I guess you could be city. Which one are you?
Ooh, gosh, I'm a foodie, so I would say I would lean towards the city, a certain city size. Like Nashville,
Okay.
I loved. It was big enough to have all kinds of variety, but not so big like Chicago that you can get lost. So I think Nashville and the food was really good. So as a foodie, I would say probably I would lean towards cities. If I really want to unplug, I think beach would be number one.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I can appreciate
Yeah. Yeah.
that. All right. Well, here, last question about this. Window or aisle seat?
Oh, window, always. I love the window seat. Yeah.
Oh, well, we could travel together because
you're an aisle?
I absolutely hate being in the window seat. Yeah, I got to be on the aisle. I need that room for my leg. You know,
I have a friend, he's always that way.
My hip, like I have a hip dysplasia.
My friend is like that. He's got to have that place for his legs. And I'm like, I like to have the window because I love the view. So to me, the window is everything. And to him, the space is everything, right? Yeah, I can feel you on that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's me. I need the space. I can't be, if I'm on the window and then someone's in the middle, I feel like I'm being like squished against the side of the airplane and I'm going to start squeezing in.
Yeah.
So tell me, the book you wrote, a dictionary and a ruler. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that was the subtitle that took me a little while to come up with, because the main title, Winning Secrets, I had that for literally years. It took me 7 years from the idea to when it actually published. There was something that happened in 2020, I think you may have heard of it, called COVID, and that really put a timeout in the process.
Right.
When I came back, you heard about that. So I came back to it afterwards, and for the longest time I was trying to figure out what's the subtitle? Like, what's going to be catchy enough to get people to raise a question they need an answer to? And that's when I thought about what's in the book, what are the themes, what are some of the objects in there? And I thought, that'll raise the question. So Winning Secrets, How a Dictionary and a Ruler Can Change Your Life. I thought, that'll raise enough of a question where the people who are innately curious are going to be like, well, that seems a little odd. How can that change my life? And then that's the reason why I put that subtitle as I did, to just kind of raise a question that people would think about. What does that have to do with winning at life? I'll tell you. Just get the book.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have to get the book because now I want to know the
exactly.
answer.
And it's available on, if you like to listen, it's available on Audible. I narrated the book. It's available in an e-format, Kindle. It's also available in paperback, and if you're one of those die-hard, gotta have it, it's even available in hardback now. So you can have it in whatever preference you like.
I like reading
Yeah.
on my phone. When Kindle first came out, there was a lot of discussion about it, and I very snobbishly was like, no, it must be in paper. I need to feel connected to the book, and I do that with my fingertips on the paper. And then, I don't know, somehow, I guess I was probably on Amazon, and I was looking for a book, and I don't remember what it was anymore. It's not important, but, Amazon will send you a free sample of it. And so I was like, okay, fine, you can send me a sample to my phone. And then once I did that, I don't know if I've bought a book since. Now it's like, easier for me. And then no one knows what you're reading. I don't have to have that conversation, right? So you have your big book out. Everyone's like, "Oh, what you reading there? What is that?" I'm like, "Well, it's a teen drama. She's a vampire." This way you could secretly read your garbage, on your phone. I like that. So how can you, in a nutshell, how can a dictionary and a ruler?
Yeah, so I
change my life?
can breeze through the introduction, which doesn't give away the answer, but really sets the stage nicely.
Yeah, I don't want you to ruin the. No spoilers.
So it's when I wrote my first book, Wow Your Customer, 7 Ways to World-Class Service. The very first chapter is a winning attitude. And I thought, I promised myself before I started writing as well, I promised myself if I came across a word that I thought could be rich in meaning, I would get out my bright red hardcover Webster's Dictionary from my college days, and I would look up the definition, all the definitions and its origin. Where did the word come from? Well, I almost didn't do that for winning. Justin, because everybody knows what winning means. Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. That type of concept. Americans are really good at defining what winning is. So I did that. I almost didn't, but I opened it up, looked it up. First definition, blue ribbon, gold medal, coming in first, excelling in competition. That was definition number 1. And I was thinking this is a waste of time. But then I got the definition number 2, and that's where it just totally changed my life, because it was one word, all caps. And the word was success. And that's where I realized if we're using the first definition to determine if we're winning at life and not the second one, then we're not using the best definition for winning at life. So I remember where I was sitting when I read it. I was doing reading at night before going to bed rather than getting ramped up with digital entertainment. And so I would spend time reading a book, and that really got me ready for going to sleep. Well, once I read that definition, my mind just took off in 3 different ways. Like if you have the wrong definition of winning at life, then if you're not number 1 in everything, or at least in one category, then you're automatically going to classify yourself as a loser. Number 2, so that's where the definition comes in. You've got to have the right definition. Number 2, if you're borrowing somebody else's ruler to measure if you're winning at life or not, and our perception of other people's success is always an illusion. We project on them what we feel is missing in our lives, and then you pull back the curtain on their life. More than half of them aren't happy where they are either. Yeah.
That's
so you
exactly
got the right
right.
definition.
And it's worse now than it's ever been, right? Keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with your neighbor, we call it it's conspicuous consumption, right? And it's constantly having to measure yourself against others by also giving this false portrayal of your own life. I had this my mother. I had this conversation with my mother. Did you hear so and so got a new car? He's got a $175,000 car, and it's okay. If I had $175,000 in cash, I assure you it would not go towards a depreciable asset like a car. But you cannot measure your success in that way, or you will never be happy in life.
And that's why we see people that have gobs of money and they're not happy. And you see people who are literally dirt poor, and they are. So the measure of our success can't be from borrowing somebody else's ruler. It just won't work. And then the third thing is we've got to celebrate the right things. you were talking about this, where nowadays it's so hard and near impossible to keep up with the Joneses because it's an artificial layer that you can never keep up with anyways. It's consumerism at its worst. But on top of that, if we're also not being aware of the fact that right definition, right ruler, and the right celebrations, we celebrate the 12th inch, and social media is really good about this. Somebody became like this world famous thing, but they didn't do it overnight. But the impression that we get is that they did.
Right.
Because the celebration is they've arrived, they've achieved it, they've made it. But when I interviewed highly successful people, they did celebrate the 12th inch, but that's not where they stopped. They started again on something else back at the very first inch. And so what we should be celebrating is the progress and the lessons that we've learned, not just the 12th inch, because there's going to be a whole lot more of those. So what we celebrate, the right celebrations in life matter. I call it compound progress, where, believe it or not, the opposite of winning is not losing or failure. The opposite is giving up, doing nothing, apathy. That's the opposite of winning. Because when you talk to people who are classified as winners, they had a whole lot of figuring it out along the way that would be classified as losing or failure. To them, it was just like, what didn't work? Now I'm going to figure out what does, and then as I figure that out, then I start making progress towards my goal, and I get to that 12th inch, but they never stop there. They're never content with that. And so those are the things, right definition, right ruler, and the right celebrations, and when you combine those then with a few other tools, right people, right goals, and that's where I have 10 winning secrets in that book, and then there are 7 chapters total. But if you start with the right definition, the right ruler, and the right celebrations, then you can build on that with 6 other chapters that bring out these additional winning secrets.
I love this. And I feel like I'm going to do you a favor and actually get my paper copy of that book, because I feel like that is a message that society needs to hear. I want to read this. I want to read more about this because this is something that's near and dear to me. I've just always been the kind of person who, I can be proud of other people's success. I think it's great. I cannot measure myself against you. So I like to run. It's like running. If you run a marathon, I'm not going to win the marathon. Are you kidding me? I'm just glad to be invited. Right? And so it's a lot like that. It's the exercise is internal. The success of my business it's all internal to me. It's all, I'm playing against myself. Can I do this? Can I make this work? And then to your point, every day we have discussions around here of like what works and what doesn't work. What is a failure? Right. Tell me if this is not working. There's this ridiculous notion that I just come into the office and I know the answer to every problem. And all I have to do is say, well, you're just not doing it right. Do it this way. And then I walk off and everything's fixed. And that's not it at all. So, well, we brainstorm. Okay, this is a failure. We need to start over. Let's do something else. Start now. Let's change this. And if this is also a failure, let me know and let's do it again. And we'll do it again and we'll do it again and we'll do it again until we probably end up back with the first thing that was a failure. And we realize, hey, turns out we hated that, but it's actually better than all the other alternatives. Let's go back to the first failure because that worked better.
That's healthy. It's right.
So, there's a point of diminishing return. And at what point do you realize that your process is a failure? Usually, one or two things will happen. Something bad happens, or someone comes to my office and closes the door, and that's how you know you've screwed up. So everything's fine until you come to my office and close the door, and now I go, oh, okay. What have we done now? It's there is a point where, because that's what we do, right? So I'm a law firm. I own a law firm. We're personal injury attorneys, but there's the business side of it, right? There's we're working with our clients. I like to, our customers, and then we have our staff, we have our attorneys, we have our intake, and so it's all about finding the right process that's going to yield the best result and the best journey for our clients. So every day we are sitting there. It's like, what do you do for a living? Look, I sit in a chair and I think about how I could be doing everything better. It's like half of my day, and then being told I'm wrong, which is It's fine. That's good. It's
Yes.
healthy.
Right. Yeah. That's why do we not give babies a hard time? Like they don't pick up walking on the very first shot, but nobody's laughing at them. They fall on their butts, they get up again. Sometimes they fall on their face, they get up again, and they keep going. It's the same with riding a bike. Man, I don't know how many times I skinned my knees learning how to ride a bike, and now it's second nature to me. Well, inventors, the same process. The reason I highlighted James Dyson's story in my book is because 5,000 iterations, 5 years to get the vacuum cleaner engine right. Well, I turn on, then that engine became the engine he used in fans and hair dryers. Now he's working on jet engines, but it took him over 5,000 iterations of what didn't work so that he could get to the point where it did. And you're right about that. If you can disconnect your ego from or wrong labels, like there's not fault with failure. Failure just means it didn't work. But the organizations that assign fault, that assign blame to something that didn't work, well, that's unhealthy and it's unreasonable and it only impedes progress. If you're really committed to getting to that end goal, then it doesn't matter how many. Sarah Blakely said her father taught her how to fail fast, to embrace that. Spanx didn't become what it was overnight, and then she and Jesse Itzler are an incredible pair where they're just constantly talking about you're figuring it out as you go, and then once you do figure it out, especially today with a pace of change, don't ever settle or be content with that, because what worked yesterday just might not work the same way tomorrow. You've always got to be on your feet, but the advantage of that is if you're a small to mid-sized business, which the bulk of the United States and the world economy is, you can be agile if, and this is what I discovered, I did a study through ChatGPT about what are some of the common elements, the core elements of a pure entrepreneur. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, pure entrepreneur. And the number one thing it boiled down to was, do they embrace change? If you embrace change, and especially in light of today how fast it moves, then you are not only entrepreneurial, but you're going to be able to flex with the things that happen in the market, that happen in the workplace. How you work through and pursue personal injury now, I'm sure, is markedly different than when you started, even though it's the same industry. You're quote unquote doing the same thing, but you're
absolutely.
not really doing the same thing. Right.
Everything's different.
And that's a testament to your ability to be flexible.
We deal with change.
Right.
We deal with change daily, every day. In fact, one of my paralegals, I went in her office. I was all excited. I was like, I got it. We are going to solve the problem. Get ready for this. And I'm so jazzed to tell her about this really stupid, inconsequential idea that is going to improve and streamline our workflow. And the look on her face was like, could not give a shit, one. Two, was exhausted at the concept of another change. And this is like my number one. She's just the best. And so she's like, what now? And I was like, what, is it too many? Is it too many like all hands emails with like new procedures? And she brings out a binder and sets it down on her desk. And it's like this big. She's like, here are the emails that you sent. I print them out so I can go back and reference them. And I was like, oh, do you still want to talk about it though? But we have to, right? We constantly, what we did 2 years ago absolutely is failing today. And so, back then, in my mind, what I'm actually talking about is our workers' comp work. So It doesn't really matter what it is. For me right now, in my mind, it's our workers' comp. And when we used to have 10, 15 workers' comp clients, we could do it in this way. When we were getting to 100 at one time, this is broken. So, every single day, we are coming up with a new process. And, everybody talks about COVID, right? Because it is the easiest, it's the easiest example of that. It was like March 18th. I was having lunch with a lawyer, or I think my dates are wrong, but essentially, I think Monday, March 18th, we were like shut down. It just didn't bother me. I didn't flinch. I had a lot of worry, as to, what about the future? What about, people aren't driving cars and not getting in car accidents and not going to stores and not slipping and falling. We had make a lot of pivots and changes, but like most law firms, it was a very profitable year. It gave us an opportunity to kind of
Yeah.
get deep in the cobwebs of our files and start moving the cases we had. It allowed us an opportunity to change broken systems. We went from meeting clients. The rule used to be when a client would call, a potential client, say, I would like to consult with you about my personal injury case. Okay, great. And the rule was tell them 10 o'clock. Justin will be here. He'll meet with you at 10 o'clock. It didn't matter if 100 people called. The rule was tell them we'll meet him at 10 o'clock. I don't care if there's a line out the door,
Right.
because there never would be. A lot of them just wouldn't show up. Well, now,
No.
we couldn't do that during COVID. And so I needed to figure out another way. So what are we going to do? We're going to get some software in here. We're going to figure out another way to help us out. We'll start
Nice.
docu-signing more contracts to our clients, right? But what happens when you represent a portion of society
Right.
that doesn't necessarily live in email
Right.
the way maybe you or I do? So on its face, it was a good idea, but it was still failing. It was my wife who had to teach me this, because before she was a lawyer, she was a public school teacher. And she says, Justin, if you didn't
Right.
work, if you didn't go to college, and
Yeah.
maybe you're your age, right? So if I didn't go to college and I didn't have an office job, would I have an email? And if I did have an email, would I check it? She's like, you're misunderstanding your customers, your clients. And so what do? We invested in texting software. We were already texting our clients. We didn't know that we could, on our budget, right, as a small business, we didn't know that we could be texting paperwork to our clients. So it completely revolutionized the practice. We might meet with a client in the office, or a potential client,
Wow.
once every 6 months.
Sure.
And it used to be every day. And so these opportunities for change really allow us to grow and reevaluate, our business. And I like it. I can do it all day. We can change processes all day. I can see, for other people who cannot embrace the change, it is demoralizing to them, right? It's breaking them out of the routine, and they need that. But I think it's essential
Yep.
to the business. It's essential to the business growth.
Yes.
And the proof is in the pudding. Go back and look and see what we were doing 2 years ago, and look and see it now. So I'm with you. Change is inevitable, but if you can mold with it.
Yeah. So rather than being the one that has to change because it hurts so bad, you have to be forward looking to think, what are the changes? As a matter of fact, if you disrupt yourself, you're way ahead of the curve. Literally. Had the privilege of attending a presentation pre-COVID by a PhD. Brilliant. She said that the pace of change has changed dramatically. At the beginning of last century, the 1900s, a business could reinvent every 75 years and be good to go. By the time it got to the 80s, it was about every 15 years. Well, the turn of this century, it was about every 5. Now, it's even faster than that. So if you're not, and her example was on the 5-year trajectory. If you didn't change on the up curve of growth, if you didn't change then, and you got to the top of it where things start to settle a little bit and your business declines just a tad, only 11% of businesses survived that slight downturn because they waited too long to reinvent not what they did, but how they did it. So if you're already, the toughest thing is business owners that assume they're entrepreneurial simply because they own a business. Okay, own a business, yes, but entrepreneurial is more of a mindset than it is whether you own the business, started the business. It's more about how you approach the business. Is your identity detached from it? Is your ego detached from it? Is it one chapter of your life? Could be a long chapter, but it's a chapter. There's always going to be a next chapter. For entrepreneurs, that's the way that it is. And if you have somebody that is in leadership of a business that's entrepreneurial, you'll be able to flex with those things. If they're not entrepreneurial, then they'll end up having a hard time letting go of the vine. Change will be painful for them, and so that means that growth will be stagnant for them. The doors will stay open. They won't die, but it'll be like survival and feeling like you're hanging on for dear life, as opposed to that person that's adventurous and bold and courageous. And I call them the C's: courageous, curious, change, and culpable, meaning I'll take responsibility, like let's make this work. If you'll do that as the owner or leader of an organization, particularly in today's economy that's global and fast moving, you'll always be ahead of those, way ahead of those that are either so large they can't turn the Titanic around that fast, or so wrapped up in their business because that is their identity that they can't flex fast enough. So I think you're in an ideal spot. And while it might drive your team a little bit crazy, it is better to have those tendencies than not, particularly in light of how today's economy is. Totally agree with that.
Yeah, somebody called me an entrepreneur today, and I said, I don't really know that I consider myself an entrepreneur. It feels inauthentic to say that. I'm just a small business owner. But
you have all the markers.
But the mindset, but maybe I've checked my ego too much. The mindset, though, is definitely that you have to be there. You have to be present in all facets and be ready to try to fix them at all times. And so, it's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, when you see it as a challenge as opposed to, the sky is falling, when you see it as an opportunity as opposed to an obstacle, that's where you know you're entrepreneurial. The embracing change is that. Like, let's take it on. Let's figure it out. The diminishing returns is everybody faces, as Seth Godin calls it, the dip. Everybody faces that. It's how long do you stay in the dip before it hockey sticks up, or it's like time to pivot. You figure that out as a team.
Okay, well, I love it. I love the change. I love problem solving. I abhor when someone gives you a reason why something won't work before they've even started it. You have to. Yeah. If it doesn't work, fine. That's fine. That's okay. But well, hey, look, John, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm getting this. In the back, or maybe he meant I was talking too slow. I don't know. Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Oh, I've gotten those clues before too.
I really appreciate you coming. I cannot wait to get your book. I'm actually going to do that momentarily here on my phone. What's the title of the book again? Because I want to make sure I get it right.
Sure. Winning Secrets: How a Dictionary and a Ruler Can Change Your Life, because it changed mine. That's not in the subtitle, but I just added that little part at the end.
And you had another book. What was the book before that?
The book before that, Wow Your Customers, 7 Ways to World-Class Service. That's what got me on virtual stages around the world and kind of got me in every continent. And then Winning Secrets is just that thing that I've been wanting to do for years, and it published last November. Great recommendations, some incredible names.
I'm going to get both of your books.
So worth the read.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Now I need to read the first. I think I need to read the first one first, because that is something near and dear to my heart. I talk about this a lot, where lawyers call their customers clients, and once you say, well, you're my client, and they think that gives them license to remove the customer service aspect of it, much like a patient goes to a doctor, right? Patients don't have customer service. You get told where to sit, where to stand,
that's true,
how
right?
long you're going to sit.
Yeah.
Like, no one cares that you have right? If you call it an appointment, you can sit there for an hour and wait. If you call it a reservation, it's different, right? So no one would allow that at a restaurant, sitting for 2 hours in the bar,
right?
But at a doctor's office, we're like, well, he's busy. I really try to take that mindset here and say, look, these aren't clients. Well, let's just get rid of that right now. These are customers, and we want them to be happy. We want them to come back.
I would recommend this, Justin. I would say give it a week. Because my brand new book that's coming out on Sunday, the 28th, is called Fifth Dimensional Customer Experience, Your Win-Win Entrepreneurial Business Plan. I'm launching it in conjunction with a TEDx talk in Marco Island, Florida. That book will probably strongly resonate with you, even more than that first book that I wrote years ago that was customer service focused. I think you'll really resonate with the customer experience, and it's going to open up who is a customer. It's not just the one paying you money. I think you'll really enjoy that book.
All right, well, I can't wait. I'm going to have the John Hanson anthology behind me. Like, you keep it up, and it's going to be, my backdrop.
A whole shelf, yeah.
A whole shelf of them. But I think these are important concepts. I think they're important for every business owner, or even not even just the owner. Everybody in operations, anybody serving
any
customers.
Key leader. Agreed. For sure. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Can't wait to read more about it. So for our listeners, how can they find you?
I'm easy to find. If you Google my name, John D, this is important, the middle initial D, John D. Hanson. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I've got my own website, johndhanson.com, so I'm easy to find. I'm usually 7, 8 out of 10 first page results, so you can pick and choose where you want to learn more about me. My favorite's LinkedIn. You'll find all kinds of content there, or my own website, johndhanson.com.
johndhanson.com. I'm going to check it out. Thanks a lot for coming. Take care.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you for joining me today on Above the Legal Limit. If you enjoyed the show and you want to hear more about business and law, hit that subscribe button. If you didn't like the show, keep it to yourself. Remember, there's no limit to what we can achieve. We will see you next week. Until then, even though we're above the legal limit, let's drive safely. Cheers, everyone.